Hi, my name's Kenneth, and I'm going to do a review for the first expansion to the game Revolver. Revolver is a two-person card game, and there's a few other reviews out there for the base game, but I don't think there's any out there for the expansions yet, so I thought, why not make one? Because I'm a pretty big fan of the first game. So this first expansion here, 1.1, it's called Ambush on Gunshot Trail. And if we flip the box over, you can kind of see all the stuff that's included in the expansion. In the top right corner there, it says includes 2 new modules to play with. So I'm going to kind of go over what those modules are and all the new things it adds to the base game. And we'll see if it's worth picking up this first expansion or not. So yeah, let's go. The first module we're going to look at is the Ambush module, and the way this works is at the beginning of the game, the Colonel McCready player starts with 6 ambush cards, and you will take them and put them face down, 1 at each battlefield. And if you remember, there's only 5 battlefields, so before you place any down, you actually randomly discard 1. So the ambush cards you have are going to be different every game because one's going to be taken out. But anyway, you put 1 face down at each battlefield, and then when you arrive at the battlefield on Colonel McCready's turn, they flip the card over and take whatever action is needed. So it's going to be a surprise for the Jack Colty player what ambush cards they have at each battlefield, and it's definitely a benefit to the Colonel McCready player. So let's take a look at what these cards actually do. So the first card here is the Bear Trap, and they kill 1 bandit. That's pretty awesome. I don't know how that guy got stuck on that bear trap because there's not really any tall grass. He must have been walking backwards, but he looks like he's in trouble. But anyway, next card we have is the Apache Raiding Party. Has 4 firepower. That's really strong. So that's one of the better ambush cards. Next we have the Eli Stringer card. Only 2 firepower, but still not too shabby. It's always nice to start at a battlefield with some firepower. Next we have the Circling Buzzards, and in this one both players draw 1 card and then discard 1 card. And then finally we have the Decoy Hat on a Rock. There's 2 of these cards, so there's 2 decoy hats on a rock, and this is exactly as it says. It's a decoy. Once you flip this card over, you just remove it from the game, so it doesn't do anything. So it just adds kind of a little element of surprise. You know, is it going to be a bear trap or is it going to be a decoy hat? You know, the Jack Colty player doesn't know. So, yeah, the ambush cards, they're pretty fun to play with. They don't add a huge element to the game, but it's a little something extra. And you can see they all have the barbed wire around the edges, so they're pretty easy to differentiate between the other cards in the deck. So, yeah, that's the Ambush module. Now we're going to take a look at the new cards for the Colonel McCready deck. And first we'll start off with the Pinkerton Agent. So there are actually 5 of these cards. There they are, all 5 of them in the deck here. And you see they have the True Grit token on there, so that means you got to kill them twice. The firepower isn't that great, only 2, and you do have to discard 1 card to play it. So I'm not a big fan of these guys because if you start playing too many of them, you're not going to have any cards left, and then you're probably going to be in trouble. So that's the Pinkerton Agents. Up next, we have the Baldwin Sisters. So place this card on top of the Derail the Train card, preventing its use. Your opponent may discard 2 on board the 315 Express to remove the sisters. So I don't know if other games, players derail the train very often, but I don't think I've ever derailed the train. So this is not a card that I like to use very often. Maybe some people are more reckless than I am, but I'm not a big fan of these darlings. So that's them. Next we have John Black Elk. So you see he has 3 firepower, and that little red cube, that's a new token introduced in this expansion, and that means you have to remove 1 token from the Mexican border to play this card. So I think it's worth it because that's 3 firepower is pretty strong. Up next we have Isabella Chastain Bounty Hunter. She also costs 1 token from the Mexican border, but you get to draw a card when you play her. And I think she missed a few buttons on her shirt. That is super scandalous, but anyway. Moving on, we have McManus and Schumacher. So these guys cost 2 tokens on the Mexican border, but when they're played, you +1 on this battlefield. So that means you're moving backwards, so that's really good for the Colonel McReady player. And this card is not affected by the Sandstorm card. So I really like these guys. I always try to play this card, kind of depending on how the Mexican border is looking. But if it's not looking too bad, I always like to play this one. Next we have the first one's free, honey. So this one, you see it says kill 1 bandit. So that's good. But then you look at how much it costs. You have to discard 2 cards and take 2 tokens off the Mexican border. So I just think that is outrageous. There's got to be cheaper ways to kill bandits than discarding 2 cards and taking 2 tokens off the Mexican border. So I've never used this card. I'm not a big fan of it at all. So you see all these cards taking tokens off the Mexican border. Well, luckily there's one that lets you put them back, and it's Pedro, the Organ Grinder's Monkey. So when you play him, you get to add 1 token to the Mexican border. You see his firepower is pretty weak, but adding to the border is never a bad thing for the Colonel McReady player. So that's Pedro. So those are all the new cards for the Colonel McReady deck. We're going to take a look at the Jack Colty cards in the expansion. So first we have the Tomahawk, and there are actually 3 of these in the deck. And the Tomahawk has 1 firepower, but when you play it, you can discard it from your hand to remove a True Grit token from an opposing card, or to kill a bounty hunter at the current battlefield. So that's not too bad. Up next we have the Stagecoach. And the way the Stagecoach works is when you play it, you put 2 +1 firepower tokens on the card. So it basically has 3 firepower, and you can remove one of the tokens to move it to the next battlefield. So kind of an interesting card to have, I guess. I don't find myself using it very often, but it's okay. Then next we have the Cherokee Freedman. So there are also 3 of these in the deck. And the way he works, you can place this at an upcoming battlefield. If you do, draw a card and then discard 1 card. So if you kind of want to shuffle through your deck, this one might not be a bad card to have. Anyway, moving on, we have the Tumbleweed. And the Tumbleweed, you remove 1 token from the Mexican border, which is good, and then you place it on any battlefield. You now have a 4-card limit in that column. So that's really good. I'm a big fan of this card. I always try to use it whenever I get the chance, because that 3-card limit that the Jack Colty player has is not very good. So next we have Drag Behind a Horse. So this one, you move a Sheriff firepower card back 1 battlefield, except for Provoke Buffalo Stampede. That's kind of nice. You know, if your opponent has a really strong card, you can just play this and move them back a battlefield, kind of putting them out of the action. And then we have the Civil War Flashbacks. So I think this is kind of a troll card, because you just make your opponent shuffle his deck, shuffle his hand back into his deck, and then draw a new hand of the same size. So I've had this backfire on me before, really bad. My opponent just drew an awesome hand and then crushed me. So I don't like this card very much. You might have better luck than me, but I'm not a big fan. And finally, we have the Chinese Fireworks. I love this card, because this, you cancel any card of your opponent when it is played, unless he discards 2 additionally. So that means, like, for example, if your opponent tried to play this card, they would have to pay 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and then take 2 tokens off the Mexican border. So then you say, ha, Chinese Fireworks. That means they have to discard 2 more cards if they want to actually use this one. So this card can be really, really devastating if played correctly. So I'm a big fan of the Chinese Fireworks. So those are all the new cards that you can add to the Jack Colty player's deck. And there are 2 other cards that the Colty player gets, and those are 2 new bandit cards. And the first one is Cooter and Bobby Joe. These dashing fellows, when they get killed, you draw a card. So that's kind of a nice bonus. And the next one is Sister Sarah and Mule. I don't know who is more goofy looking, Sister Sarah or the Mule. But yeah, these two new bandit cards just give the Jack Colty player a little, I don't know, extended life, because it's just two more bandits that the Colonel McGreedy player has to kill. So yeah, that's all the new stuff for the Jack Colty player. So there you have it. That's all the first expansion to Revolver has to offer. My thoughts, I think this expansion is definitely a step in the right direction. One complaint about the base game was if you had crappy cards, you were basically screwed. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. There wasn't too much strategy in the first game. And with the deck building and the ambush cards that this expansion introduced, you can start to have some sort of strategy. It's a small step in the right direction. I think you really need to get all the expansions if you really want to enjoy this game a lot. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this expansion. If you did not like the base game for Revolver, this is probably not going to change your opinion about it. But if you did enjoy the base game Revolver, I think this expansion would probably be a good addition. And you can get it for about $10 online. So it's not too expensive, but yeah, there you have it. Ambush on Gunshot Trail.